I mean, they actually benefit the state and its connected financial interests benefit tremendously from inflation and from war. And, these two things always go together. I don't know whether they actually saw the war in Europe coming, but there certainly were people in Britain who had been advocating a war against Germany long before 1914. And same with Russia and with France, the so-called allies. So it's, I don't know enough to say yes, but would I be surprised if they had actually, because they wanted a central bank for a very long time, so that they wanted that separately, but did they push it through and really scheme it through in a vast PR line campaign at that time to be ready for a European war? May very well be true.
Well, so let's go back in time to the American Revolution and the phrase "not worth a continental." Doesn't that come from the paper money during the Great Secession from England?
Yeah, it's a very funny. They were one of the members of the Continental Congress in arguing against taxes. He said, "Why should I consent to tax?" I can't remember whether he said my constituents or the people or whatever. When we can send to the printer, get a paper. This is only an approximate quote, but it's pretty much accurate. Get a wagon load of paper money and pay for it with just a quire of it. That is a small. In other words, you can get this wagon load of paper money and you pay the printer with a little bit of the paper money. You get all the rest, and you don't have to levy a tax on anybody and upset them. So certainly that's what the Continental Congress did. They financed the war through the inflation of the continental currency. And you're right, as a result of it, and it was about the prices. The value of the Continental was about 1/1000th of its value before the Revolution, after the Revolution. And the people who tended to hold this currency and use it, the people who were in favor of American independence, got burned the most. And ironically, the Tories, who wanted to continue British rule, would have nothing to do with this currency and just wanted to trade in gold and silver, in the relative terms, they did much better. So it's an ironic thing. But yeah, this is governments love paper money. I mean, not that inflation doesn't come with paper money. If you look at the history of the denarius, which was the sort of central silver coin of the Roman Empire, in the early days, it's a piece of solid silver. After all the wars and inflation, it's a piece of copper coated in silver. But and then of course kings and other forms of government have typically, in the days of gold and silver coins, what they've done is they do coin clipping, where they would clip the edges off. And that, by the way, is why we still have, even though there's no reason for it with these bologna sandwich cupro-nickel coins that LBJ gave us, but it still has the reading around the edges. Those little lines are to tell you if somebody has clipped off the edge. So that's a relic from the days of silver and gold coins.
I remember reading about the history of one or the other emperor of China who actually had the death penalty for anybody who wouldn't accept his bogus monies. He was doing the very same thing. I think it was in The Creature from Jekyll Island. Griffin talks about that.
Well, if you read Marco Polo's fantastic book about his travels, I mean, it's just I highly recommend it. It's a fascinating book. But part of it is he talks about visiting the Chinese Empire, Kublai Khan. And he says, boy, it's the most astounding thing. He prints this paper money, and the officials sign it, and then people, have to take it. He said, "Yeah, it's very interesting." He thinks that's an interesting thing. Maybe they should adopt it in Europe. He wasn't that much of an economist, Marco Polo.
No, I guess not.
But that's how that's one of our sources for Kublai Khan. And it's funny, in the American paper money experience, originally they, just like Kublai Khan in the 13th century, originally had officials sign each bill, as it happened with the paper money in the colonies earlier. But obviously they started putting this stuff out at such a tremendous rate that they just had to print the signatures on. By the way, Ben Franklin, a big advocate of paper money, had the contract to print the paper money. I'm sure just a merest happenstance that he was an advocate of inflation and also had the contract. But this is, of course, the way government works.
Right. Now, I think part of this discussion, we're sort of taking it for granted that we both understand that the creation of new money, this printing press money, magic wand money, is the cause of inflation. And yet, that understanding actually doesn't seem to permeate through, at say, I don't know, the TV, financial networks.
Well, Scott, you're right, and they want, for example, if the gasoline price is going up, we're supposed to blame the Arabs, those horrible people who should all have their throats slit by Bush and his war on terror, or we're supposed to blame the gas station, all those horrible people who are selling us gasoline at a higher price, or it's the fault of OPEC, or maybe it's Exxon or whatever. But it's not. It's the fault of the depreciation of the money. So inflation, governments, ever since they first seized control of money, have depreciated it. Not every government. The Byzantine Empire, interestingly enough, did not depreciate their gold coinage over many hundreds of years, and it became the standard coin all over the world. We find them all over the world today. Still find these coins because it was the coin that was accepted. Everybody trusted it, and it didn't depreciate. Maybe one reason the Byzantine Empire lasted as long as it did. But governments, by and large, tend to inflate. And in the old days before central banking, there were two bad results of this. One is the depreciation in the value of the money. I mean, just in the sense that if you increase the supply of tomatoes, all other things being equal, tomatoes are going to be cheaper. Well, if you increase the supply of dollars, all other things being equal, the dollar is cheaper, therefore it takes more dollars to buy something. So this is why prices go up. There's also another effect of inflation that's not talked about, and it's a redistributionary effect. That is, the people who get the new money first, the government. In the old days, the courtiers, the people around the court. These days, the banks, the military-industrial complex, the government contractors, the government itself, who get the new money first and are able to spend it before it loses its value, take money away from the people who get it last, poor people, old people, retired people, people outside of the big cities who live in the country and so forth. So inflation results not only in the value of every dollar going down, but it has a redistributive effect because you can buy more when you get the money first, and the people who get it last can buy less, and they lose wealth more. So inflation is just an unbelievably vicious tactic by government. I guess everything government does is vicious, but inflation is just a pretty rotten thing, and of course it's disguised, which is why they love it. And they're always, the government can point fingers at various people who are to blame, and right now they're blaming oil speculators as being responsible for the oil price going up. Anybody but them. But with central banking, it adds a third leg to this evil stool, and it's the business cycle. Because when you inflate through the banks, in the old days it was just the king would call in all the money, melt down the money, add lead to it, and send it out and say, by the way, you have to accept this money that has less silver in it than the old money for the same value, or we're going to kill you or put you in jail or whatever. Or in the case of the French Revolution with the assignat, you had to accept this paper money or we're going to kill you at the same value, and you must accept it. Didn't work, by the way, but that's government. Well, with going into the banking system, one effect it has is it lowers the interest rate below the market rate. And one of the effects of this is you get all kinds of investments being made that at the time, during the artificial boom caused by the big increase in the money supply, like the Fed has engineered, especially since 9/11, you have all kinds of things, vast condos being built, houses, all kinds of Bear Stearns, building a brand new building, and everybody's living it up, and everything looks great, and it looks like you've been very smart. Then when the inevitable bust comes about, and they have to have a bust, or otherwise you get hyperinflation and the total destruction of the currency, which even the government doesn't want. So when the bust comes, then you have a recession or a depression. We may be, in fact, headed for a depression right now. So this is also a result of the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve makes your dollar worth less. It takes money from the poor and middle class and gives it to the rich government-connected people. It causes the business cycle. It causes crazy artificial booms. When the real damage is done, then the suffering of the recession, the depression, and it also makes possible the warfare state in the size to which we've unfortunately been accustomed.